This is Single Status. Hello, Single Status family. Welcome back. And I'm super pumped about this episode and the next episode because we kind of have a two-parter with Emily and Andrew Colby, who have just a really amazing story, both of them in their journey of, singleness and then finding love like later on in life. And so before we even jump into that, I just want to remind you, if you don't already, if you're new here, welcome to the show. If you don't already, definitely follow me on Instagram at Samantha Vigneault, Vigneau. I'm also on TikTok. You can watch me there. And if you are on Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave a rating. And on Apple, if you go to my page and scroll all the way down, you can also write a written review. I would really appreciate that. That's kind of how we further the show to more people. And if you are watching on YouTube, definitely hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share, do all the things. Okay, that's my spiel. So introducing Emily Colby. Hey,
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and like I said, next week we're going to have her husband on the show. So I'm so excited because we're going to hear her story, and then we're going to go into her husband's story 2 weeks from now. And yes, I'm so pumped that you're here. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much. Also, a little plug for you. Samantha's TikToks are so good. They're funny. They're informative. I've really enjoyed watching your TikToks.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. And I love your TikTok too, because you have these really amazing dogs that are just, it's really all over your TikTok.
Yes, they are. We're trying to make them famous, definitely.
They are pretty. You have what, 12,000 followers on there or something?
Yeah.
They're
No, we
so
do.
cute.
My husband, he had 2 dogs when I was already before I came into the picture. He had 2 mini golden doodles. And then we got married and we started joking around about getting a dog. And we're on 2.5 acres. So we need a big dog. So then we got on this train of thought of just wanting a big dog, and we found a Bernedoodle, which is a Bernese mountain dog and poodle. And so at the moment he's about 90 pounds and he's supposed to grow to over 100 pounds.
Wow.
But we're
they're big teddy bears.
Yes. And he thinks he's a lap dog. He thinks he's a small dog.
I see it on there. So you guys have to follow them on TikTok.
Yes. It's fun. It's very hilarious and comical. My husband's like, what did we do? And I'm like,
I was going to ask you whose dogs were they before, because you guys just got married recently, and we're gonna get into that.
Yes. Yeah.
And Emily's from Australia. You can probably notice the accent. I told her I want an Australian accent. I love that. So let's dive in, because there's so much here. I don't want to waste time. So where do you want to start? The background, maybe your upbringing, and then let's start there.
Yeah, I grew up in Australia, on the beaches of Australia on the East Coast, and I grew up in a Christian home. I have a really beautiful family. I have an older sister and a younger brother. My parents are still together. I'm just so blessed. I grew up in Australia, and then when I turned 18. I did the whole I'm going to be independent and I'm going to move overseas. And so I went all the way to New Zealand, which is just across the ocean. It's not very far at all. And I have family there. So I lived with my cousins, and the thought was that I would just go there for 6 months and just sort of get away from some of the party lifestyle that was happening for me in Australia.
Okay.
And what happened was I met a guy when I was in New Zealand, and at the church I was going to, and he was a worship leader, and he was good looking, and I was like, this is it. I'm on track. I don't know.
When they can play music, there's something.
Yes. yes.
The personality goes out the door, and you're like, but he can play music.
Very blinded. Yeah.
Right.
But he was great, except that we just probably weren't so good together. And
You were so young too. It's
So
like the maturity
young.
levels at that age.
Yeah, just
You
we're
both
not
could be
there.
great people, but you're just not there yet. Yeah.
Yes. And because it was like I lived in a small town, and so we'd break up and we'd get back together and break. It was just really hard to make that cut for each other. And so yeah, after 2.5 years, I was like, I need to go back to Australia and make this break. So I did that. But growing up in a Christian home, I hope it's sort of different now. But for me personally, I was really taught about how to be a good wife. It was like your goal in life was to be a good wife, and
Wow.
that's just what I had my focus
Mm-hmm.
on was, okay, I'm going to get married at 21, then I'm going to have 3 kids, and I'm going to be a really good wife, and da 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 da. So I just had this. I think my personality trait as well is that like I get my mind fixed on something, and then that's it. And so I just never really even considered that there was another option.
Right.
So I came home at 20, single, heartbroken, and was like, wow, I'm really behind schedule. So I,
Wow.
continued on with life as you do, turned 21, and then met another guy, and he was really great. There were definitely like red flags along the way. We had some really great times, but just, yeah, some things that he in his behavior that I didn't align with and I wasn't okay with. But I did ignore them because, well, one, I did love him and we had great times together, but also I'm like, I'm behind schedule here. And he was a really great guy. It's not, it's sort of hard to say, well, he was just this horrible person and yet I still married him. But we just weren't, I don't believe that we were ever right for each other.
Mm-hmm.
But in saying that, like I mentioned, like we did get married.
And
And
how long were you dating for?
we were dating for, I think by the time we got married, it was about 4 years,
Okay.
4 years.
So what
Yeah.
were some of the red flags?
Um, for me, it was just that sometimes like the way that I suppose his priorities would be
Okay.
a
Yeah.
good thing for me. Like our priorities were just different. He wanted
Yeah.
to go and be with his mates, mates, friends,
Yeah.
guy friends. He really wanted to go in and have a good time, and that was like his focus. And
Okay.
for me, I was more about wanting to have like God first, have a relationship, and be more focused on
Right.
us. So yeah, there were like those differences. Like other red flags was just the way that we would speak to each other wasn't very
Mm.
kind. So I
Yeah.
think if you're doing that in your relationship, like in the beginning stages of your relationship, and you're not learning how to disagree
Right.
in a healthy way, if you're not learning how to speak to each other with kindness, like that's only going to get worse the more comfortable you are with
Right.
each other. So
Yes.
that was really the trajectory of what happened for us, is that we had these bad behaviors early on in our relationship and we never fixed them, and then they just continued to grow and get worse to a point where it was just quite toxic for both of
Yeah.
us, I would say, in the end.
Well, and I've seen it it seems to be so normal a lot of times where people think it's okay to talk to each other, talk to their spouse or their boyfriend or girlfriend
Yeah.
in this kind of demeaning way.
Yeah.
I remember early on I told you I was in a relationship all throughout my 20s
Yeah.
and I was, really immature.
Mhm.
But when it came to like how to talk to your person
Mhm.
properly, I remember one time I swore at my ex-boyfriend and he was like, "Don't ever swear at me again." He's
Mm.
like, "I will not swear at you. Don't swear at me." And
Yeah.
it was a big learning for me. Like, I'm not supposed to talk to my boyfriend
Mhm.
like this or my future husband like this.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think that that's a really good when you're young, you just don't think about stuff like that. But if
Definitely.
you're not
Yeah.
gonna talk like that to a friend or a
Yeah.
family member, we shouldn't be talking like that to our,
No.
person.
There, that's right. And
Yeah.
because you do get into this space of being comfortable with each other and sharing emotions and being vulnerable with each other,
Mhm.
but that's also not an excuse to lash out
Right.
and speak unkindly to each other or demeaning to each other as
Right.
well. Like you always have to. That was my thing. I grew in self-awareness. I wouldn't say
Yes,
always
we
had
as
it,
we
but I
all
grew in
do. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And I look back and think like that was not okay to talk to anybody that way, let
Mhm.
alone my spouse. And always for me, I've this is what I'm continually learning. It's like they're a child of God just as much as I am, and
Mhm.
even if they're doing something wrong, I'm like, that's not for me to then demean them, I suppose is the
Right.
right, like, yeah, how can we can there's always a way to speak to someone in a way that's kind, showing kindness and showing love and showing grace, and convicting them at the same time, like, there's
Right.
always that beautiful balance that we can find, but it's a journey to find that, and having a safe space with your partner to have those conversations and not get defensive and not attack each other.
Right.
But
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's all about growth and
Mm.
understanding, like, we can reflect on, all of our actions and
Yeah.
improve. Like, it's a learning process for all of
Yeah.
us. So
Exactly.
you were dating for years and then you got married.
Mhm.
So how old were you when you
I ended up being 24 when I got married.
Okay. And then
Yes.
so let's go into the relationship.
Yeah, so
Um,
then we were still young and immature, and our first year of marriage was not great. But then he actually came into some health issues, some really significant health issues. So then that was a year into our marriage that they came up, and then we spent the next couple of years just journeying through those health issues, and I became a like a oh sorry part of like a caretaker for him. I mean, his family
mm,
was very close and an incredible support to him and to us. But it it was just very there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of chaos, and after a couple of years, I really felt the Lord. There were some real bad behaviors that were happening, and I really felt the Lord highlighting to me after 2 years, like, hey, you need to stop ignoring this behavior, and we need to start addressing some of this bad behavior that's happening. So then that was the journey that I was on in that year in 2018, and it unfortunately it the year ended with our marriage also ending, and that wasn't. It's not like a lot that I want to get into there to protect him, but
mm,
just know that I never recommend. I think we mentioned it already, like, I would never recommend divorce. We had a lot of counsel in that, and ultimately, like, our relationship was very, very toxic and very unhealthy, and we weren't able to get to a place to turn that around. I speak like from my side. I was willing to do that. I can't speak for his side, and whether he was willing or not, but ultimately, like, we did we did do a lot of counseling and things like that, and unfortunately it just didn't it ended in us separating and then ultimately
mm.
divorcing. But then that meant I was 29 and single. And I was like,
Wow.
how did I end up here?
Yeah. And so before we get into, yes, the divorce and everything,
Hmm.
how was it? Well, okay, so you had this timeline, like
Yeah.
early on, you were
Hmm.
raised in this Christian household where, you had it set that you had to be a wife and everything. Do you think that had anything to do with moving forward in the marriage with him or?
Yeah, I think so. Part of it was that, and part of it was like whenever I did go to um, some close friends or family to share some of the concerns I was having, they they didn't know, which is hard to. I don't want to put this on them at all because they
Mhm.
didn't know the full picture of what
Right.
I was experiencing with him. But there was they would just encourage me to stay with him because he was such a great guy,
Mm.
and that's the side that they saw. They didn't see what was going on behind
Yeah,
closed
you
doors.
never know
Yeah,
the
so on one hand, I was that I'd walk away from these conversations and be like, okay, maybe I'm just crazy, or maybe I'm just like overthinking things, and but then ultimately they didn't know the full
mm,
story. So it was like this really tricky thing, and then you can even go further, like deeper into it, I suppose, where I was very insecure growing up, and then I was bullied in high school, so it just developed these like really big insecurities within me, and I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my own feelings. I didn't trust that I didn't believe I was a confident person. I didn't believe that I was a person worthy of love.
Wow.
So even though I was getting this minimal love from him, I thought that, well, that must be all I'm worth. Like
Wow.
this must just be normal. So
Wow.
it really just, and then I'm going to these friends and family and they're encouraging me to stay. And I'm like, so it just cements that feeling, even though they didn't know the full story. And they would have told me differently, I think, if they did know the full story.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing how when you don't have that self-awareness, or if you don't go to therapy, I'm a big advocate for therapy,
Mm-hmm.
that the enemy will come and he's just going to keep attacking that point for you. And if you don't have wise counsel, if you don't have that self-awareness or that developing your relationship with God, then that mindset stays.
Right. Okay, so you both decide that it's time to,
Mm.
move forward with the divorce. So tell us how that went. So now you're 29, you're
Mm-hmm.
single. What was the grieving process like?
It was really, really tough. It was
Mm-hmm.
really tough. I went through a big journey with God. I definitely moved away from living a Christian lifestyle.
Okay.
I still believed in God. I still had a relationship with Jesus, but there were like some key points for me where um I'd sought some godly counsel before we'd separated and all of that, and they were telling me that I had to stay in the home, and they're saying the Holy Spirit's telling me you have to stay in the home, and I would be like, but I really feel that the Holy Spirit's leading me to move out of the home. And it wasn't to move out of the home to get divorced. It was to move out of the home to create a safe space for both my
Yeah.
ex-husband and I to heal and to move forward. So it was never with the intention to leave, but it was like, this isn't safe. Where we're at right
Mm-hmm.
now is not safe. And so we need to be separate for a bit. Anyway, everything then progressed and we were separating, divorcing. And so I'm like looking back and thinking, I've trusted these leaders in my life, these Christian
Wow.
leaders, and I've allowed them to speak into my life, which is good, which is wise. But it just really dealt with the foundations of my beliefs of like, well, what is true and what is not? Like, you tell me not to do X, Y, and Z, and like looking back, I know that if I want to have a fruitful life, like there's godly principles and there's biblical principles to stick to,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you're going to have fruit. But at that time, I was like, let me just go find out for myself.
Right.
And so I'm 29 and I'm just like I would be like, I'm living my best life. And I remember one night I'd gone out with a friend and I'm sitting in the curb on the curbside, and we'd been drinking and all of that. And she's like, okay, it's time to go home. I'm like, I'm just living my best life. And she's looking at me and she's like, babe, you are not living your best life. Like, this is
Mm.
not your best life. But I was just so walking through so much hurt.
Yeah.
So the fact that I was not in this unhealthy marriage, sitting on a curb at 2 a.m. was my best life. And so again, like people were still calling out in me like, no, like there's better
Yeah,
for
I love
you.
that. Yeah.
This isn't your best.
Yeah. And
Um
before, can we just stop here for a
yeah.
minute? Because I think that's really good advice for someone like when you were talking about you went to some, godly leaders in your life
Mm,
to ask for advice. Wise counsel is needed and it's good.
yeah.
However, we need to have discernment for ourselves
Yeah.
because just because someone's saying, "Oh, the Holy Spirit told me to tell you this,"
Yeah.
does not mean that that's for you. We need to have discernment and
Yeah.
we need to be able to trust our gut feeling, that's God.
Yes. Yeah.
And we need to be able to have that personal relationship with Jesus on our own to know, because
Mm-hmm.
he'll tell you what you need to do.
Yeah.
And so not all counsel is good counsel. Like
Yeah.
they might have had good intentions and are
Yes.
great people, but
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, not everyone knows what's going on with you.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone knows what's best for you.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you'll know when it's advice to to take.
Yes. And
Or
trust that, like,
yeah.
trust yourself,
Yes.
because Holy Spirit speaks to you, like the Lord
Mm-hmm.
speaks to you. If you're seeking Him, like He's gonna speak to you. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, wisely counsel is good, but trust yourself,
Because not
definitely.
every single piece of advice, sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
listen to people too much. It's like
Yeah.
we also need to listen to ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
have that connection with God on our own. And I love that friend that was with
Yeah.
you on the curb.
Yeah.
And because
She's the best.
we need friends that are real. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, this isn't your best life.
No.
Like, because there are those people that are like, yes, like after a breakup, they want you to go out and party and want you to,
Mm-hmm.
and no judgment or anything, but
Yeah.
like those friends that are like, no, like we'll get through this and you are
Mm-hmm.
better than this.
Yeah.
Like, this is a low point, but girl, like you
Yeah.
got it. Like this is not your best life.
This is
There's so
not
much
your
more to
best life.
come. Like that. Those are the kind of friends we
Yes.
need around us.
Yeah,
I
definitely, like
love that.
surrounding yourself with good people for sure.
Yes.
It made all the difference. I
Yeah.
remember like my friend, she was she got married young and she had kids and she has like a really beautiful life, and her and I would be talking and I'd be sitting at home alone being like, "Oh, you're so blessed." And she's like, "No, you're blessed. Like the grass isn't greener on the other side. Like the grass
Mm.
is greener where you water it." And so
Yes.
she's like, live your best life now. Like water the grass where you are right now, because like a family will come to you, like a husband will come to you, like that will happen. But right now, like you don't have that. So how do you water the grass where you are right now?
Wow.
And now I look back and I have a really beautiful life now as well. Like I'm so blessed. But it's interesting because I look back on that time being single and I'm like, oh, it was so precious.
Mm-hmm.
Like I miss it in a
Yeah.
sense, but in a good way, not as in like I long for that time back, but I miss
Yeah.
it in a good way where I learned how to enjoy being on my own, and learn how to develop my relationship with the Lord on my own, and I learned how to like hang out with friends and enjoy my independence and my freedom, and grow in who I am. So yeah, that was like another big point for me. It was like just having good friends around me and calling out the truth in you, and also reminding you like life's good right now.
Yeah.
If you plant yourself in good places, the good things are going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that I love the word precious for this season, because
Yeah.
that is what I have noticed about, like, I went through a hard breakup, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I was 29 too. It
Yeah.
was a breakup, but
Wow.
it kind of felt like, because we were together so long, that it could have been a divorce almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was so hard at first, and then
Mm-hmm.
that pain that I went through brought so much intimacy with the Lord
Yeah.
that it has turned into such a precious time.
Yeah.
Like that's the perfect word to
Yes.
say it. And when we like take the scales off of our eyes and our hearts and really open up to God in that season,
Mm-hmm.
and see all the beauty of relationships with friends and family.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes we're so buried in our pain that we can't see it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But when we finally start to see it, those times you can cherish so much, and it's so
Yeah.
beautiful. So
Yeah.
let's go into that a little more. So you find yourself single.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell us a little like about the journey and what you did in that season. And
So I a lot happened in that season. I went to a lot of counseling in that season, and tried to like it was just like a rebuilding of who I am and what I believe, and what I'm okay with and what I'm not okay with. Like how do I want to be treated by people, and what am I going to put up with and not put up with,
yep.
So there was that part of it. I was yeah tw- I actually got offered the job in America. So I was working in Australia in a ministry in our Australian office. It's a global ministry. So I was working in the Australian office, and the president of the ministry in America, he actually offered me a job in America back at the beginning of 2019. And I was like, yes, like the job he offered me was like everything I wanted. It was everything I needed. But then I came home and I had so much fear. I had so much fear, and I didn't, even after everything I'd walked through, I was just so vulnerable. And we started that, my ex and I were starting like that separation process, like so splitting up assets and things. And it's so painful because you're trying to put a dollar value on what your worth was as a wife. Like
Wow.
it is
Yeah.
the strangest thing. And I remember my lawyer kept telling me, like, it's just see it as a business transaction. And I'm like, but it's not. Like,
It's more than
it's
that.
my life.
Right.
It's who I was and who I am. And, you know, that's why I don't recommend divorce if there is a way to resolve it. But anyway, so yeah, I had all this fear. I was very vulnerable. I was going through like so much heartache and like heartbreak, like over and over again, because, you know, you're constantly being confronted with the last 8 years of your life and what you did well and what you didn't, and what you're
Right.
worth and what you're not.
Right.
So all of that to say was, oh, and I also thought I was living my best life, remember? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I turned down the job, and then God is so good because I say he's so good because not that he allowed me to live my own life, but he was still just such a good father in that he knew I was going to make my own choice because we have free will.
Right.
But he's like, I'm still going to protect you, and I'm still with you. And what happened was I turned down the job in the US, and I got another job. So I quit, and I got another job for a for-profit business, but the owner of the business was a Christian lady, which ultimately turned out to be the best thing ever. So she was great. I learned so much in that season, which is also, to fast track a bit, is that God will always use everything for his good and for his glory.
Yes.
So whether I'd moved to the US in 2019 or not, I don't know whether that was right or not, but God still used the season that I stayed in Australia. And I learnt skills that I now use today.
Wow.
So, you know, there's still always good that comes from it. But I was working with this lady and learning a lot, living my best life. And God, I was getting to this place where, to me, I believe it was becoming quite dangerous, in the sense of, like, I was just being very reckless.
Okay.
And God, again, I feel like it's such a good father that he was like, okay, that's enough. Like, yes, you have free will, you have choice, but I'm really going to come in on you now, because this is, I don't want you going down this road. And he really took a hold of me, and he just kept pressing on my heart, like, you need to go back to ministry. You need to go back to ministry. And I was like, God, I don't even want to go to church right now. Like, you want me to go work at ministry? And I'm like, and then I'm getting so involved in this new job that I'm like, I can't just pack up and leave. Like, I'd been with her, like, I think about 6 months at that point. And I said, you know what, God? Because he kept on my heart. Like, when God's after you, like, it was just,
wow. Yeah, you can't stop thinking about it.
Yes. And as I said, well, you know what? If you really want me to step away from this job, like, you need to release me from it. I'm not about to go and do anything. Like, I was a real brat, but
I
God
can
is
get like that too. It's okay. That's when, you're real with God.
Yes.
Got that friendship.
And a week later, my boss, she called me into her office, and she's like, are you happy? I'm like, yeah, I'm happy. She's like, I don't know. She's like, I've just been praying about you, and I really feel that, like, the Lord's putting something on your heart, and you need to go and do that.
Wow.
I'm like,
listen to this.
Yeah.
That's how God works.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like, are you sure? She's like, yeah. I'm like, are we really sure though? She's like,
Yeah.
yes. She said, I just really feel like your time with me is coming to an end. She's like, I don't want you to leave, but you need to go and do what God's telling you to do. I'm like,
wow.
Really?
What an angel. What an
Yeah.
angel.
She was amazing. And so she said to me, like, you stay here as long as you want. No way am I, like, kicking you out. But just go and do what he's asking you to do, and just keep me in the loop of, like, what's going on. So I very humbly went back to my old boss, the one who had offered me the job in America, and emailed him. I said, hey, is that job still available? And he said yes. And so we went through that process. But it was a whole big journey where I just look back on it and think God is a good father who loves you and protects you and wants to see you through every season of your life.
Yeah.
and that is what I experienced. And so, I mean, all that to say is like, okay, I lived a bit of a reckless lifestyle. And that doesn't come without consequences. Like, I don't want anyone to think like, okay, cool, I'm going to go live my reckless life and then God's going
Mm-hmm.
to make up for it. You know, like there are
Yeah.
consequences to everything that we do. And I'm
Yeah.
so thankful that that I've grown from that, and that I don't live a reckless lifestyle anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily, I learn everything from it. You know, God uses it all for his good and for
Yeah.
his glory, but I don't recommend it. The better way is to, the better way to see fruit in your life and to not delay good things in your life is to live by how the Lord wants us to, with
Mm-hmm.
biblical principles. Like
Yeah.
that's where the real fruit comes from. I do feel like there are seasons in my life that have been delayed, and part of that was the consequence of wanting to go my
Yes,
own
for sure.
way.
Yeah, and I think there's consequences and there's judgment. Like God is
Yeah.
not, he's not a God that's going to shun you, and like he's
Mhm.
forgiving. Like the moment we say, Lord, I'm sorry, I repent,
Yeah.
I want to follow you, like he is like, yes, I love you, like let's
Yes.
go, like I
Yes.
forgive you.
Yeah.
And then, but that's, then there's consequences that may still come with our actions, even though God forgives us.
Yeah.
There's consequences from what we did.
Well,
But
yeah, that's right.
yeah, it's all part of the process. But you're right, like there are things that I've done in my past too that definitely I see now, like, okay, that delayed things for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, he's so good to still
Use it for your good.
yeah,
Yes,
but
even all those things, it ends
yes.
up, it's just a whole mystery. God's a mystery.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so let's get into, okay, so you moved to America. So so then how quickly did you move, since your boss said that to you?
Yeah. Okay. So then I had to do like the work visa process, and then COVID happened. So I got stuck in Australia for over a year in the end. So which was, and then that was a whole thing, I 20 what are we in 2020, I was meant to move, but then the US consulate shut down because of COVID, so I couldn't go do my work visa interview. And at that point no one knew, like, is it going to be a couple of months, what is going to happen? So my boss was like, all right, we'll wait until the consulate opens back up, like all good. So I stay on this journey, and then my interviews keep getting delayed and cancelled and delayed, and to the point where we're halfway through 2020. My boss is like, you know what, we're all used to Zoom and online, let's start your role now. So I started my role in Australia, which was great, but definitely hard because of the time difference.
Yeah.
So I was like working like all through the night.
Oh
and
yeah.
Anyway, so my schedule was all a mess. But all my friends and family are saying like, hey, maybe this isn't it. Like, maybe this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. But I knew, like,
In your heart.
in my heart, like, no, this is what the Lord
this.
wants. Yeah. Wow. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, even though it looks crazy in the natural. Which was the same thing, like, for my husband and I. We started communicating online, like, just randomly, and so we were like friends, but there was coming to a point where I'm like, okay, well, I think we like each other, but we don't even know if I'm getting to America at this point.
Okay, so now we're gonna start getting into Andrew, because I want to know all the details. So you're still in Australia, COVID's happening. This is so now you're working remotely.
Yes.
And so Andrew works for the same ministry.
Yeah.
So you start talking, is it like work related and then it turns into like a friendship, or?
Well, no, we were just social media friends,
So you're just friends.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of talking more and more, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, is something happening? Okay.
So we were like, yeah, but then, and I mean, I was dating in Australia. I think he was like, so we weren't in any way official or anything like that, but it was like, we knew we enjoyed talking to each other. And we're like, maybe there's something here, but also I'm not even in the country, and we don't even know if I'm going to get into the country. So like, where do you, like, it was this really weird
Right.
limbo space for us. But whenever I prayed about it, I was like, God, I feel like I should just stop talking to him. Like, this is just weird. And I've always felt like the Lord saying, no, I want you to stay in communication with him.
Wow.
Which
And were
was,
you guys texting a lot or calling or?
yeah, we would, whenever we spoke on the phone, it was always hours and hours long. So we didn't do that
Wow.
too much, but we were keeping in contact
Yes.
regularly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very, very strange time.
Yeah.
But we did get to know each other
Mm-hmm.
very well.
Okay.
Yes. And we did build a really good friendship.
Yeah.
And so then we get to the end of 2020, and finally in December I have my work visa interview, and got my work visa. So then it was like December 29th I land in America. So I had like 3 weeks to like pack everything up
Right at the
and
start
move.
of the year.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
did you have a feeling that this year was about to be, so this is 2020?
It's the end of 2020.
And
yeah.
you're going into 2021. So did
Mhm.
you have a feeling going into the year like this is going to be a different type of year?
I don't remember. I remember being excited for the season.
Okay.
Because of the job. Like, I loved what I was doing. So I was excited to be able to doing it in the same time zone as
Yes.
my work colleagues. And then I was excited to see, I just knew something good was coming.
Yes.
I didn't know that it would be with him.
Okay.
Like, I definitely wasn't putting my hopes on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just knew like something good things were coming.
Okay.
So then, December 31st, like for New Year's Eve, we went on a date, and it was like,
oh my gosh.
yeah.
Wow.
History.
So literally you get there and the next day you go on a date?
2 days later. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so then
Well, so then I was like, okay, I think I like this guy. I knew I liked him, and I'm like, I think this is going to be something.
And were you at this stage where, okay, so just from experience, getting back on the market at 29.
Yeah.
And thinking, like you said, we're thinking through, oh my gosh, what I do wrong, like red flags, what did I do? So were you at the cautious stage?
Probably not, because what I did was, I remember in 2019 or 2020, I wrote a list. Like, I'd never written a list before of like what I wanted in a husband.
Okay.
But for some reason, I felt it must have been like the Lord just put it on my heart, and I wrote this list. It was a very short list, but all these guys I was going on dates with, a lot of them were all these guys I was going on dates with they were really great guys, but they didn't tick everything on the list. So I was always like, no, it's probably not it then.
Not it, right.
And
so you knew what you were looking for.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. Then honestly, like with Andrew, it was like, wow, okay, he's like actually ticking everything on the list and then some.
Wow.
And so I remember feeling at peace about that. But I think, for both of us, it was just this weird knowing. Like, it's just,
wow.
We knew. Like, I say that to be like, when I first saw him, I showed up at his house, and he was in the gym in his home gym working out. And I'm like, this guy knew I was coming.
For a date?
And he's like working out. I'm like, whoa, okay, so I've misread this. Like, we are just friends. And then
wow.
And then he was showing me around the house, and we end up chatting to his neighbors for like 30 minutes. I'm like, it's like the first time I'm seeing you and we're chatting to your neighbors. Like, I really misread this. And then he actually had someone come over to do a quote on his like outdoor area pavement. And I was like, what is this?
This is such a typical guy thing to do.
It's just like, but our conversation flowed. We had a great night. Everything flowed. Everything was amazing. But it wasn't for me. It was on like the 4th or 5th time that we were hanging out that I was like, yeah, no, this is definitely it. Like,
wow.
Like, I always had like this sense of like, I'm pretty sure this is it. Like, this real knowing that like, I'm pretty sure. But then it was after like the 4th or 5th date that I was like, yeah, definitely. And I think he has his own story with that. But Yeah, we were like engaged 3 months later and married 4 months. I'd
Wow.
been in the country 4 months and we got married because we just knew. And again, we don't recommend that. We're not like, yeah, just go and get married. We'd been through a lot in our lives. He
Yes.
was 37, I believe. I was 31, I think, by the time we got married.
Okay.
So we'd been through different seasons in our life. We were in
You
different.
were very self-aware.
Yeah.
And you both learned and grew a lot, and you were at a spiritual place where you could hear and know
Yeah.
that this is what God wanted for you.
Yes. Yeah. So there weren't any red flags with him. Not that he
And
was perfect, but
right, and I think that's really good
mm,
like advice for listeners is making sure that the actions of the person are lining up with our feelings, cuz I think
yeah.
that's that early stage is where we miss a lot,
Yeah.
where we're falling for someone, so we start ignoring red flags.
Yes.
But you're saying that it's like his actions were lining up with what you were feeling, and that
Mm,
like that list you had, not that
yeah.
you were super like regimented about it,
Yeah.
but you had an idea of what you wanted, and it seemed like it was all aligning. And then you said
Mm,
and some.
and some, yeah. Because I remember like my list was like, have godly beliefs and blue eyes and tall and like all of this stuff. And then I remember when we first started dating, like he was just taking care of me in a way that I hadn't experienced before.
Like what?
Like it's even as simple things of like helping me get a car and thinking ahead. So like I needed to
Mm,
do X, Y, and Z, like tie up insurances and stuff like that to get a car. And so he's like, oh, I already called them for you, and I already did this for you, and we've got this organized, and I've got this appointment for you that we can do. So just being available for whatever I needed, and then
helping you.
settling in. Yeah, so then he was like even things like bringing me breakfast for work,
Aw.
and yeah,
Wow.
like anything I needed, or I was like, hey, I don't know how to set up a bank account. Like he's like, oh yeah, so then he would take me to the bank, and probably didn't help me in my self-sufficiency in America, because now I'm like, hey babe, how do I tip? But yeah, he was very just is just servant-hearted. I really wanted someone that was
Wow.
servant-hearted, and that was had his priorities in
Wow.
in the order that I would like them to be in the
And so
order I
when
would
you say
say.
servant hearted for the listeners,
Mm.
what does that mean to you when you were looking for
Yeah.
someone, and and
Mhm.
the actions that Andrew, does? What does that mean?
It's like, to me, it's someone that is not self-serving, but they're selfless.
Mm,
So they're putting they're putting your needs above their own. Okay,
love
so
that.
they're like not sitting there asking you, hey, can you give me a massage, or hey, can you please make me some dinner, or can you please sort this out. They're being selfless um and thinking, okay, maybe if I want a massage, she probably wants a massage, let me give her a massage.
Yeah.
These were like the things that I experienced. And I do think as well, like, that a relationship has to be two ways. So like,
Right.
if I'm expecting him to be selfless, I have to be selfless too,
Yeah.
but that was how he was very servant hearted in that he was thinking of me and how to help me, and how can he make me happier, how can he make my life easier, um what could he do, because it came out of the overflow of his love for me, and not about what he can get out of the relationship, but what he can do to help me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, it does for sure. And I do have another question too, because it just seems like I don't know, your story is so cool how you guys met and everything. And I think from the past relationship you had, and it
Mm,
seemed like there was a lot of turmoil, and
mm.
you
Chaos.
knew, yeah, chaos, and you kind of knew that it wasn't right.
Mm,
Like, and a lot of times we say, okay, that's just how relationships are.
yeah.
Relationships are hard.
Mm,
Um, we have to expect that all the time, and they are hard, and we have to work at them. But what
mm,
would you say now is
mm.
different, that that it seems like it seems to me like you feel like you're kind of walking in God's will and alignment
Yeah.
for you and how this
Mm-hmm.
man's treating you.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I'm kind of trying to
So
get the question, but do you understand what I'm saying?
yeah, I think that he for us is like we have disagreements. We in no way have a perfect relationship. It's not without its struggles, but we also said I said to him in the beginning, you know, like life's hard. Life's hard enough. Like I don't feel like our relationship should be hard too.
Mm.
Um I feel like it should be fun and easy and loving and safe. And he agreed, and so we continually strive to do that and to be that for each other, and we're continually learning how to do that because it does come with a lot of sacrifice in the sense of I'm really tired. I don't want to clean up the kitchen. I just want to go to bed. But then I think, you know what? He's going to get up early in the morning to go work out. Who wants to come into the kitchen early in the morning and see a mess?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to stay up and I'm going to clean up the kitchen. It's like as simple things like that, which help with the ease of our everyday life when we're acting that way,
Mm-hmm.
but then also help to remind, like I'm always like, wow, he loves me and is looking out for me and is looking out for us, and hopefully he feels the same way. And so it's coming into the relationship with these. He's not, when he does do something that annoys me or that might hurt me, his intention isn't to hurt me. His intention is to serve me and to love me. So let's discuss this.
Right.
And finding ways to have healthy discussions about things that might upset the other one. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate all the things that you do for me, but when you did this, it made me feel quite undervalued.
Right.
And when you have someone that is self-aware and it has the same attention in the relationship to love the other person, hopefully then they receive that and they say, wow, I never wanted to make you feel that way. Thank you for letting me know. And look, is there another way that I could approach this situation? Or is there another way I could talk to you that would make you feel valued?
I love that.
You know, so that's something that we're not that we do
Mm-hmm.
perfectly, but that we're really trying to work on, because relationships are hard, but they don't have to be filled with turmoil.
Right. I
Yeah.
love that. And it seems like the biggest difference is it's two people that are self-aware,
Mm.
that are here to serve each other, and
Yeah.
you both understand that like there's going to be issues and there's going to be things we have to figure out, but you're both willing to put in the work
Mm-hmm.
and love each other and serve each other. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love
And
that.
I definitely, you know, I said I wanted all of these things, like a fun and easy relationship and marriage, but then we got married and it was very convicting for me because I was still on this path of like what he can do for me. Like, well, he's
Mm.
not doing this. He's not speaking to me like this. I don't think he told me enough times that he loved me today. Like,
Okay,
did
yeah.
he didn't give me a compliment today. And changing that frame of mind of like, well, did I give him a compliment today? How many times did
Wow.
I tell him that I loved him? Did I encourage him today?
Mm-hmm.
That changing that mindset for me was pivotal, because not only did it encourage him and build him up, but then he reiterated that to me.
Right.
So it's, yeah, that having the mindset of always like, this is my spouse. How can I encourage them? How can I build them up? How can I make them to be the best version, help them to be the best
Yeah.
version of themselves? How can I support them?
Yeah.
And taking the focus off of yourself and what they can give to you,
Mm.
because ultimately, one, I mean, the God's the one that's going to provide you with all the love and satisfaction that you need in life. You don't seek that from a person. But secondly, they'll reiterate that. They'll respond to that in a loving way and
Right.
and be like, I remember I started doing the thing of like, I really want a foot massage right now. Okay, let me give him one. So I'd
Yeah.
give him one, and then 10 minutes later he was like, hey, let me give you a foot massage too, you know?
Yeah.
So
Oh, I love that.
mm,
So, I love your story, and we are like
thank you.
running out of time a little bit, but if you could give any piece of advice to, single people who do desire
Mm,
marriage, how can we prepare best? And, what
mm.
would you recommend to us in this season?
Um, I recommend finding a good therapist, learning about yourself, building yourself. If you can get yourself to a place of confidence with security, um, and yeah, becoming self-aware would definitely be my number one advice. I'm a big advocate for that, to continually grow as a person, because we all have thought patterns, we all have triggers. And so for me with therapy, I can find like, oh, I'm triggered by this, why, and go
Yeah.
back into it and just change some of my thought processes, and that become healthy, become like the healthiest version of yourself, mentally, physically. And that would be my number one advice. And secondly would be to keep in the frame of mind of like, this season isn't forever, because nothing's forever.
Right.
And everything from God is, like, God has a gift. So when you're single, that's a gift. There's a gift within the season of singleness.
Yes.
So what is that gift? Maybe it's the fact that you can just pack up and find an Airbnb for a weekend and go to New York for the weekend. I would love
Yep.
to do that. But now I'm like, hey babe, can we, that absolute freedom to go and do whatever you want. And so enjoy that part of it. So enjoy your life, like, water the grass where you are, and the next season will come, and then you'll appreciate that season for what it is. But become the best version of yourself through therapy, through physical exercise, through healthy eating. Enjoy your freedom for what it is. Get some good friends around you, and surely the next season will come before you know it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Emily. Thanks so much for sharing your
Thank
story.
you.
It's beautiful, and I'm
Thank
so happy
you.
for you and Andrew, because you
Thank you.
the marriage was recent, right? It was last
2 years.
2 years. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're still newlyweds.
Yeah, we're babies still.
Oh, that's awesome. So, where can everyone find you if they'd like to
Well, on TikTok.
look at the dogs on
Look at the
TikTok?
dogs. We are the Colbys, I believe. We are the Colbys on TikTok. And then my Instagram, you can find me. I'm Emily Colby. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
And
you.
the 2 weeks from now, we'll have Andrew on, and we're going to hear all about his side of the story. So, this was great. I loved our
Thank you.
conversation. And before we end, I'd like to end with 3 affirmations. I really believe in the power of our words. So if you're new here, you can place your hand over your heart and just repeat after me. I am not alone. I am loved and cherished by the Father, and I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. All right, and before we go, if you don't already, make sure to follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Samantha Vigneau, Vigneau. That's where you can get all the updates on what's going on with the show. And if you listen on Apple and Spotify, if you could just go to my page and leave a rating, and then on Apple you can scroll down and write a review. That would be so helpful, and it would be awesome to hear your feedback on the show. If you watch on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like, comment, all this stuff, and share with a single friend, because this is why we're here. Like, this is helpful. This is good stuff. So, all right, guys, thanks so much for being here. Love you. See you next time.